Hello everyone, myself Krishna. In this video, I'm going to explain about queue activities like get queue items activity, delete queue items activities in UiPath Studio. So let's get started. If you want to extract queue items from the UiPath Orchestrator Queues, we can use the get queue items activity. For this activity, we need to select the queue name. So here we have multiple filter options are available. So based on the options that you have provided here, the queue items will be extracted. So you can provide the duration from date to date, and if you want to extract the queue items based on the priority, you can select the priority. And if you want to extract the queue items based on the queue statuses, so here you can select the checkboxes, right? And you can extract the queue items based on the reference as well. So if we mention the reference, so we need to choose the filter strategy either start with or equal. If we want to skip any queue item, so here we can mention the number, and if you want to extract the top queue items, so here we can mention the how many top queue items you wanted to extract. The output of the get queue items activity will return the list of queue items. So let me create a variable here, right? Here I did not select any filter options. So let's see how many queue items will be extracted with this activity. So let me take one log message, right? So let's save and run the process. Now the process execution has been completed. In the output we can see 100 queue items has been extracted, right? So let me go to the UiPath Orchestrator. In the UiPath Orchestrator, in the test queue, basically we have 350 queue items are available. But when you are using the get queue items activity in the UiPath Studio, we are getting only 100 queue items only, right? So let's see how we can get the 350 queue items in the UiPath Studio. So let's take in a real-time scenario. I just wanted to create a report with the processed queue items. In each queue item, I have mentioned these details: work ID, description, type, status, and date. In the reporting, I wanted to extract these details and reference and status. And in case if status is failed, I want to extract whether it is business exception or system exception. So, and also I want to extract the reason for the failure, right? To achieve this requirement, my approach would be first I will going to extract all the 350 queue items from the UiPath Orchestrator, and then from the extracted queue items I will going to get the required information for the report creation, right? So let's see how we can implement this logic. So here first I am going to take one sequence to initialize the variables. So let me take one multi-SN activity. So here I am going to create a variable list of all queue items, and the type should be list of queue items. So let me change the variable data type and scope. Right, and then I'm going to create one integer variable. So the initial value should be 0. Now I am going to take one do while activity to get all the transactions. So here I am going to take one do while activity. So I am going to move this get queue items activity in the body section. So for the get queue items activity, in the skip section, I'm going to mention the integer variable that I have created. And then I'm going to take one invoke method activity. So here I'm going to add all the extracted queue items in the variable that I have created, that is list of all queue items. So the method name would be add range. The target object would be list of all queue items. In the invoke method, in the parameter section, we will going to mention the extracted queue items information. So here I am going to copy this variable in the parameter section. So direction should be in and the type should be list of queue items dot to list, right? And then I am going to take one assign activity to increment the integer counter. So here the expression int skip transaction plus list of queue items dot count, right? So for the do while, the condition should be list of queue items dot count equal to 100, right? So let's recap this logic. So first we are getting the queue items from the UiPath Orchestrator queue. So for this we have mentioned the skip transaction in the skip section. So initially the skip transaction counter is 0, so it will not going to skip any transaction. So this activity will extract last 100 transactions. So those transactions we are adding in the variable that we have created, list all queue items. Then we are incrementing the skip transaction counter. Initially this value is 0. So after completion of first iteration, this value will become as 100. In the first iteration, this condition will true. Then it will going to get the transactions again. So in this time, so the skip transaction value is 100. It will going to skip last 100 transaction and then it will get the remaining transactions, right? So then it will going to extract the remaining 100 transaction and again we will going to add those transactions in the list all queue items. Then we will going to increment the counter. Now it will become as 200. In the second time also this condition will true. Again it will going to get the queue items. So in this time the skip transaction counter is 200. It will going to skip last 200 transaction and then the remaining transaction will be extracted and we will going to add the details to the list of all queue items, increment the counter. So now in the third time also this condition will true, right? And then it will going to get the queue items again. So now the skip transaction counter would be 300, right? So now it will going to extract the remaining 50 transactions and we will going to add them in the list of all queue items. So in the fourth time, so the condition will fail, then it will exit the do while loop. So let's check all the transactions are extracting or not. So let's save and run the process. So the process execution has been completed. So in the output we can see 350, right? Now we will going to iterate all the queue items and then we will going to extract the required information and then we will add in the data table, right? So let me create a one data table here. So here I have mentioned few columns: work ID, description type, status, date, reference, queue status, exception type, and reason. Right? So let me create a variable and let me change the scope. To iterate all the queue items, I am going to take one for each activity. So here I am going to mention the variable list of all queue items. Here I am going to take add data row activity. So here I am going to pass data table variable. So here I am going to mention the expression to extract the required details. So the first value would be work ID, second description, type, status, and date. Then we need a reference. Then we need status. In case if the status is failed, we need whether it is a business exception or system exception, right? So for that I'm going to write an ternary if condition. Status dot toString successful, else empty. So in case if the status is failed, so we need the reason as well. So I'm going to use the same type of expression. Right? So let's click on save. At the end of for each activity, I'm going to create an Excel. So I'm going to take an activity, write in workbook activity. So here I'm going to mention the file path as report.xlsx. So the data table should be dt. So add headers, right? Now let's save and run the process and verify the output. Now the process execution has been completed. So let's go to the project folder. So the report file got created. So let's open the file. So the report file got created with the expected details. So work ID, description type, status, date, reference, queue status, exception type, and reason. Right? So let's verify how many records are added. So 350 count, right? In the UiPath Orchestrator in the test queue, I wanted to delete all the low priority queue items. So let's see how we can do that. So here I am going to change the logic for extracting the queue items. So here I am going to change the priority to low, right? And then I am going to use the delete queue items activity. So here I am going to mention the variable list of all queue items, right? So let's save and run the process. Now the process execution has been completed. So let's go to the UiPath Orchestrator. So let's refresh, and the low priority queue items has been deleted. So let's filter the only low priority queue items. So all the low priority queue items has been deleted, right?